Okay, so about 4 or 5 key things are happening at once. Let's start with what's going on with the Shadowed One. In the midst of the chaos on the island of Zia, the Dark Hunters have taken control of the island. And it has been blessed with the Shadowed One's personal oversight. His oversight becomes piqued curiosity when he sees a vortex digging around in the mud. The Shadowed One says, "Let me see what you're doing," and the guy's like, no, it's fine, it's nothing, just leave me alone, please. So the Shadowed One murders him with his laser eyes. He finds something absolutely fascinating in the dirt. A Makuta virus. If you'll remember, a couple thousand years ago, a Makuta by the name of Kojol tried to sell a Makuta virus to the Xian people. He died for only sort of related reasons. The Shadowed One is thrilled because he knows exactly what he has, but he has no idea how to use it yet. And no one, absolutely no one, can know that he has this. But before he can stash it away, his second-in-command, Ancient, shows up and is like, "What you got there?" These will be some of Ancient's last words. "I cannot stand pollen." So Ancient sidles up to the Shadowed One and is like, "What you got there?" And the Shadowed One says, "I have something very special. It is Makuta virus. It will help us destroy all Makuta." And Ancient's like, "Great, I'm sure there's plenty of people who could make use of this." And the Shadowed One's like, no one's going to know I have it. And so the Shadowed One promptly and heartlessly murders the person that he co-built his entire life's foundation on. Goodbye forever, you weird lizard fuck. A little while later, the Shadowed One is just chilling when Kalma, Elek, and Mantax show up. They don't actually look like this, they're still mutated, I just took apart the old sets that I built. So what are these guys doing here? Well, after the events of the 2007 storyline, the Baraki were recaptured. However, Helrix saw fit to re-release them so that the Baraki could help the Order of Madanui fight against the Brotherhood of Makuta. This was a bad idea, because the 4 of them are already working together to re-establish the League of Six Kingdoms. And now that the League of Six Kingdoms is getting its feet back on the ground, it would seem the Shadowed One is about to be coronated. I should really work on getting better lighting. Kalma cuts right to the chase and says, "Hey, we have a spicy deal for you!" This spicy deal... God damn it. This spicy deal is that the Shadowed One will team up with Kalma, Pridak, Mantax, and Elek to reform what is, I guess, now the 5 kingdoms, because Karapar's dead and Takadox is being a shitheel. The Shadowed One's like, "Ah yes, League of Six Kingdoms, I know you. Your reputation precedes you. Your reputation is shit." The League explains that they know about the Makuta virus and they're pretty sure that the Shadowed One has it. However, they also know that he has no idea how to make use of it. The thing is, they know how to use it, and they also know how to strike at the Great Spirit, because they were planning to do it like 80,000 years ago. And with Makuta eventually being out of the way, if the League teamed up with the Dark Hunters, that army would be unrivaled, at least in theory. The Shadowed One's like, "Bowler, let's make it happen." All that's left is for the Shadowed One to meet up with Pridak to solidify this potential alliance for the ages. I'm once again pretty sure that I've reached every Bionicle fan on this app, and I don't think my following can grow much from here. Moving on, we have the dynamic duo of these 2 beefy boys. If you need a refresher, this is Axon. He's a lumberjack with a lie detector on his face, and this is Brutaka. He can teleport between dimensions, and he's an asshole. They are also both obscenely powerful, which is why they have been tasked with 2 very specific missions. The first of these missions is to go to the island of Zakaz to negotiate with a warlord named Nektan. As a brief reminder, the inhabitants of Zakaz are the Skakti, and they're basically just giant smiling gorillas that know only war! For a while now, the island has been facing an unending assault of Rakshi sent by the Brotherhood of Makuta to take over the island. Brutaka and Axon want to broker an alliance with Nektan specifically because he's the most powerful warlord on the island. Nektan is initially suspicious because he's like, "Oh, well, what about everybody else? If I ally with you guys, I'm essentially allying myself against every other warlord on this island, and that kind of fucks me, you know?" Brutaka lies and says they already have everybody else on the island on their side. This works! Man, for being the strongest warlord on the island, Nektan is a fucking idiot. The next mission these 2 must embark on will prove exceedingly more difficult than the previous one. They are going to the birthplace of all Makuta to destroy it forever. Which, weirdly enough, is just a cave of antidermis in the middle of bumfuck nowhere. I'm not sure exactly how that works, but they're just gonna blow it up, basically. Before they get to work, Axon turns to Brutaka and is like, "Hey, should we be doing this? This kinda seems like diet genocide." Brutaka's response to this is, "Look, if we don't do this, the Makuta are going to have the resources to commit actual genocide. If we don't do what we came here to do, people are going to die. I don't want that. I know you don't want that either." And Axon's like, "Yeah, I can't really argue with that." But then all of a sudden, the pool of antidermis starts fighting back. It sucks in Axon, and he begins to suffocate, and he's basically just like, "Well, this is an interesting way to die." But before he can really register what's happened, he's scooped out of that whole mess by Brutaka, and his old friend looks very different. People keep being in the comments like, "I just dropped back into the story. What the fuck happened?" And like, yeah, same, buddy, same. Brutaka has been seriously mutated by the antidermis. He's taller, broader, muscle tissue is bulging out of his armor. Oh, and he's also floating like a foot off the ground. Additionally, Brutaka's pronouns have changed. They now refer to themselves as we. The antidermis seems to have seeped into them and given them Makuta powers, but also Makuta knowledge. Which means Brutaka now also knows exactly how Makuta is going to overthrow the Great Spirit. Axon's like, fam, what happened to you? And Brutaka's like, we gotta haul ass out of here right now. What comes next? Find out in the next issue of Wingus and Dingus, two of the most powerful beings in the universe that share a brain cell between them. For now, we're gonna move on to Helrix. She's been joined by somebody who we haven't seen in a very, very long time, Kitangu! These two have gotten together to begin their own preemptive strike against the Brotherhood of Makuta. Kitangu and Helrix are on the hunt for large energized protodermis pits. Energized protodermis is what's responsible for turning Krata into Rakshi. Rakshi make up a large chunk of the Brotherhood's army, and destroying them at the source is the best way to win this war, Helrix believes. In their search, Kitangu and Helrix come across one of the largest protodermis pits that either of them has ever seen, and rising from it is someone we haven't seen in a very long time. Do you guys remember the Entity from, literally almost 300 episodes ago? The giant torso that got a bunch of rocks dropped on it by the Toa Metru? This is my son Star. He will be playing the role of the Entity. So Helrix and Kitangu come across this giant pit of energized protodermis and the Entity and are like, what? And the Entity is kind enough to offer them and us a massive exposition dump that really kind of changes your perspective on the whole energized protodermis thing. Look, we have the same eyes! The Entity explains that it's not just some spirit inhabiting the energized protodermis, it is the energized protodermis. But more than that, it's all energized protodermis, at least to some extent. See, energized protodermis is a collective living consciousness. When the inhabitants of Spherus Magna started fracking for it over 100,000 years ago, they didn't know or care about this fact. Most of the energized protodermis was either used up or destroyed when Spherus Magna exploded. Most of what remains is on the Great Spirit Robot. Some of it is still on the planet, but most of it is on the Great Spirit Robot. The Entity is the sole embodiment of that fragment of consciousness. For the past 100,000 years, essentially, it has been the one deciding what gets mutated and what gets destroyed. This is all happening completely at the whim of the creature. It has no grasp on what the actual reality of the outside world is, nor does it care. It does, however, care very much that Helrix wants to blow it up. The Entity does not take kindly to the fact that it is about to be exploded. So it generates a giant wave of energized protodermis that is fixing to eradicate Kitangu and Helrix. There's nowhere to run and absolutely nothing either of these two can do about this. So the last remainder of his species and the first Toa ever to be brought into existence are about to be wiped off the face of the earth. Well, this is kind of a massive bummer, Helrix said, probably. However, just in the nick of time, a dimensional portal opens up next to them. Now, you might expect it to be Brutaka coming to the rescue of his boss and this giant spider-murdering shaman, but it's actually a lot weirder than that. It's fucking Vizon, with a mask of interdimensional travel fused to his head. Helrix and Kitangu waste no time pondering how convenient this is and jump through the portal, leaving Vizon to be flattened by a giant tidal wave, or so they assume. But okay, so how in the dog-dick fuck did Vizon get his hands on a mask of interdimensional travel? Well... pollen. So where did Vizon come from, and why does he have an Olmec fused to his head? The answer is weirder than you might think. So after Vizon fulfilled his duty to the Order of Mata Nui, they decided to just re-imprison him again instead of setting him free. Which is honestly perfectly reasonable if you ask me. Almost immediately after this, he gets sent on another mission with a dude named Trinuma. The plan basically is to sneak Vizon onto the island of Destral to feed the Makuta a bunch of fake battle plans to catch them off guard. Trinuma kicks Vizon off the boat and tells him to go do his thing. The thing is, Vizon is still kind of bitter about finishing his mission for the Order of Mata Nui and then just getting thrown back in jail. So he thinks to himself, what if I just betrayed the Order for real? I mean, why not, right? Vizon has no scruples and does not give a shit about the fate of the universe. I love him so much. The first person Vizon comes into contact with is a Makuta named Teridax, the inventor of the Teridax pod. I feel like Rudolph the goddamn red-nosed reindeer. I fucking hate spring sometimes. Teridax's first reaction to Vizon showing up is, "What are you doing in me swamp?" Yes, Teridax is also an angry Scotsman. Fuck you, I wanted to do the voice again. So Vizon explains, "Well, I was going to give you fake intel from the Order of Mata Nui because they told me to give you fake intel, but I'm just gonna give you the real intel, that I'm giving you fake intel because the Order of Mata Nui wanted me to give you fake intel, but instead I'm giving you real intel." Teridax isn't really sure what's going on, but he assumes that Vizon is lying, which, for the first time ever, is the incorrect assumption to make about Vizon. Vizon explains that a big part of the plan is that someone else from the Order of Mata Nui is going to sabotage the island's teleporter. Right, I should clarify, the island of Destral can teleport. I think Trinuma was supposed to break the teleporter. I'm not really sure what the plan was there. So Teridax takes Vizon with him to check it out, and the teleporter seems fine. So Teridax has every reason to assume that Vizon is lying, and he's just going to kill him. Whoops. You know, I was on Xyzal before you could get this shit over the counter. Teridax is about to make a necklace out of Vizon's many teeth. But before he can do that, Vizon notices something. The entire room is lined with tubes filled with what looks like the same being. Each instance of this being seems to be in a different state of decay as its power is being drained away. Vizon doesn't recognize the figure, but we would. It's Takanuva. What Vizon is seeing appear to be a whole bunch of clones of Takanuva having their light drained out of them. Vizon's like, yo, what the fuck is this? And because Teridax loves his job, he decides to indulge Vizon on his plans before he fucking murders him. As far as we know, there are only 2 instances of the Kanohi Olmec, the Mask of Interdimensional Travel. One is worn by Brutaka, and the other one has been acquired by Teridax, which means he killed a Toa for it, I think. Teridax has been using the Mask of Interdimensional Travel to travel between universes, grab different instances of Takanuva the Toa of Light, and drain him of all his light, creating an army of Shadow Toa. Holy Shadow Clone Army, Batman! So to sum up, Teridax is using Shadow Leeches to drain the light out of various different multiversal instances of the Toa of Light to create an army of Shadow Toa. Teridax, the inventor of the Teridax pod and multidimensional kidnapping. The plan is actually genius, though, I'm not gonna lie. Vizon is like, yo, that's fucking sick, and Teridax is like, I know, right? Thanks. Now I'm gonna kill ya. But before Teridax can murder Vizon, the Order of Motunui shows up. That is to say, Mazika enters the chat with his buddy Topduck. The two of them expose Teridax to an armor-eating virus that kills him pretty much instantly. Another Scotsman down! Let's talk about Topduck for a second, and no, this isn't what he looks like. Topduck is originally from the island of Vizorak, which you'll remember had a different name before the Vizorak entirely destroyed it and killed everybody on there, except for him. His story is kind of similar to Kitangu's in that vein. When he joined the Order of Motunui, he took on the name Topduck, which is a Matoran word for survivor. He's a badass. Ayo. So with Teridax dead and the Order of Motunui fully in control of the island of Destral, one question still remains. What do we do with Vizon? Topduck says to Mazika, murder his ass, and then just leaves. Now bear in mind, neither of these two really have any innate powers, but the thing is, Mazika is an incredibly well-trained assassin badass, and Vizon is just a lunatic. If Mazika wanted to kill Vizon, he very much could. But Mazika decides that it probably wouldn't be right to just murder a defenseless crazy person, and himself just leaves, leaving Vizon alone on Destral, surrounded by a bunch of Shadow Toa who are stuck in stasis. But Vizon doesn't give a shit about that, because he's just found Teridax's Olmec. By making this decision, Mazika has inadvertently saved a lot of people's lives. But he's also made the multiverse a much more unstable place, because now Vizon is just hopping around causing chaos. And trust me, we'll get to that. It's great. Okay. Moving on to a completely different and perhaps unexpected set of characters, the Toa Haga. They don't actually look like this is just a stand-in. They have been tasked by the Order of Motunui to go find Teridax. They're using the connection that Snake Zaktan, Snacktan if you will, supposedly has to Teridax by trapping him in a fishbowl and using him like a tiny little compass. This works, but the image of Zaktan stuck in a fishbowl is hilarious to me. They realize that to complete their mission, they must do something almost unthinkable. Destroy the Colosseum of Metru Nui. The reasons for this become clear, however, when they run into the Toa Mari and have to explain their plan to them, it does not go over well. And the two Toa teams start fighting each other. The battle starts to get out of hand, so they stop fighting, tensions simmer a little bit, and Jalas says, yeah, whatever, just go commit your act of terrorism, we got other shit to do. I know this is a weird tangent, but it becomes relevant later, I promise. Anyhow, the city of Metru Nui is suddenly besieged by the Brotherhood of Makuta's army of Rakshi. So an army of Rakshi has invaded Metru Nui. The Order of Motunui is on site to help the people of the island defend themselves, but it's a really big army of Rakshi. Like, there's a lot of them. The fight's going passably, but they're not winning. While this is happening, Turaga Vakama is hiding away in the Colosseum. He checks on the Mask of Time, and he's like, man, it would really suck if somebody showed up and took the Mask of Time right now. And as if on cue, exactly the person that you wouldn't want taking the Mask of Time shows up to take the Mask of Time. Voparak is back, baby! He's finally got his hands on the precious Mask of Time, and there's absolutely nothing Vakama can do about it because he's a tiny little shrimp of a man now. Voparak makes a Voparak-shaped hole in the wall and leaves, atomizing one of the members of the Order of Motunui casually as he just strolls out of there. This is bad for pretty much all of the rest of the universe, but Voparak is happy as a clam. And I love that for him. Crazily enough, however, as we know, this is not the most immediate or pressing issue. Hey, cool, a marble. The fight to save Metru Nui from the onslaught of Rakshi is not going super well right now. But Turaga Vakama has an idea. I don't remember how he figured this out, but Vakama happens to know that there's a small army of Borak still lying dormant underneath the island of Metru Nui. Those who have encountered the Borak have long suspected that one of the things that wakes them up is a particular sonic frequency, but nobody's sure what that frequency actually is. Vakama also happens to be privy to the fact that one of the members of the Order of Motunui that was sent to defend the island of Metru Nui is a Toa by the name of Krakua. Krakua is a Toa of sonics, and Vakama believes that if Krakua cycles through a whole bunch of sonic frequencies, he will eventually hit the one that will wake up the Borak. Now, of course, all the Borak want to do is get out of Metru Nui to get above ground to the island of Motunui to cleanse it. The Rakshi, however, don't know this, and Vakama suspects that once the Borak show up, the Rakshi will start blindly attacking them because they're big, dumb, bloodthirsty slugs in robot suits. This brilliant little plan works perfectly. I love how the plan was basically just like, yo, Grey Boy, make loud noises until the bugs show up. With the swarm of Bolrock released, the tide of the battle starts turning. Then suddenly, everybody feels a shift in the air. There's a warm breeze, the world seems to feel more alive. And everybody, of course, knows what this means. The Great Spirit is alive and well and has finally woken up again. And then right on time, the Toa show up in their speeders and start blasting the shit out of the Rakshi. What few Rakshi remain make a swift retreat. The city and the universe are both saved. Or so we think. While the city prepares for a victory celebration, Holly wanders the streets and thinks to herself, this seems like it was a little bit too easy. This was a fight against the entire Brotherhood of Makuta, and against a whole bunch of Rakshi, which on their own are pretty dangerous, but an entire army? Like, holy shit. They shouldn't have made it out of this with as few casualties as they did. Something seems off.